My beloved child, wait, listen, pause here for just a second. Something important is unfolding right now. Not loudly. Not with headlines. But quietly, where decisions are made before the world ever notices. They tell you success is confidence. They show you the wins, the numbers, the applause. But what if the real engine behind extraordinary lives is something almost no one admits? What if the truth isn't glamorous, but it's powerful? Tonight, we peel back the surface of a familiar name, Elon Musk. Not to tear down, but to reveal. Not gossip. Not drama. Awareness. Pause. Because this is where most people misunderstand success. From the outside, it looks like certainty. Like boldness without hesitation. Like a mind that never doubts. But behind the curtain, behind every leap into the unknown, there is something else. Something successful people rarely say out loud. They move before they feel ready. That's the first truth. You've been told to wait until you're prepared. Until fear disappears. Until confidence arrives. But those who shape the future don't wait for permission from comfort. They step forward while uncertainty is still breathing down their neck. Think about it. Rockets don't launch in silence. They shake. They tremble. They burn enormous fuel just to break gravity. And yet, from the outside, all you see is liftoff. What you don't see is the pressure. Here's the second truth they never admit. Clarity often comes after commitment. Most people want a full map before they take a step. Visionaries take a step, then the path reveals itself. Not because they're reckless, but because movement creates information. Action sharpens thought. Stay with me. You might miss the turning point if you blink. When people study powerful innovators, they focus on intelligence, resources, timing. Rarely do they talk about tolerance for discomfort. The willingness to be misunderstood. To look foolish early so something meaningful can exist later. And here's the quiet part no one claps for. Success often feels lonely before it feels rewarding. There are moments, long ones, where progress is invisible. Where the world doubts. Where even you question yourself. But the difference isn't the absence of doubt. It's the refusal to let doubt make the final decision. Ask yourself this, just sit with it for a breath. What if the hesitation you feel right now isn't a warning, but an invitation? This story isn't about copying anyone's path. It's about recognizing the pattern beneath achievement. The internal mechanics. The mindset no one posts about. And we're just getting started. Stay a little longer, because the next part reveals what successful people hide even from themselves. Hold on, before your mind drifts, come closer. This is where the story deepens. There's a moment in every ambitious life where logic runs out. Where data can't fully justify the next move. And this is where many turn back. But those who build the future lean into something different. They trust iteration over perfection. That's the third truth. Perfection feels safe. Iteration feels exposed. Yet the world you admire was built through versions, messy, flawed, constantly improving versions. The myth is that successful people know the final answer. The reality is they commit to learning faster than others quit. Think of it like this: the future isn't predicted, it's prototyped. And here's another revelation they rarely admit. They redefine failure in private. To most, failure is an ending. To them, it's data. Feedback. A signal, not of inadequacy, but of adjustment. When something collapses, they don't ask, "Why me?" They ask, "What now?" Short pause. Let that land. Because if you change how you interpret setbacks, you change how long you stay in the game. And longevity, quiet, patient endurance, is an unfair advantage. You may notice something else about people who reshape industries: they ask questions others avoid. Questions that sound unrealistic at first. Questions that stretch timelines and expectations. Not "what's safe?" but "what's possible?" And here's the part few will say out loud. Belief isn't always confidence. Sometimes it's stubborn curiosity. A refusal to accept that the present version of reality is final. Before we go further, let me say this gently. If this perspective is shifting something inside you, consider sharing this journey with someone who's been questioning their path too. And if you choose to stay connected, a quiet subscribe keeps these conversations flowing. No pressure, just alignment. Now listen closely. Success isn't about becoming fearless. It's about becoming directional. Moving with fear instead of waiting for its permission. Understanding that courage is not loud, it's consistent. What if this moment changes your entire path? Because the final truth is approaching. And it ties everything together. Don't leave yet. The last part isn't louder, but it's clearer. One more pause. Breathe. This is the reveal most people never articulate. Successful people don't believe they are special. That's the secret hiding in plain sight. They believe the process is special. They trust systems, habits, compounding effort. They know that small, repeated actions, done when no one is watching, shape outcomes more than sudden bursts of motivation. They don't wait to feel inspired. They build structures that carry them forward even on uninspired days. And here's the paradox. The more responsibility they accept, the more freedom they gain. Responsibility for learning. For decisions. For outcomes. Not blame, ownership. Ownership creates leverage. Leverage creates impact. Look at the arc again, not the person, but the pattern. Bold questions. Rapid learning. Comfort with uncertainty. Long-term vision paired with immediate action. That combination is rare. But it's learnable. You don't need to be extraordinary to begin. You begin, and over time, you become uncommon. Before you go, hear this line, because it matters more than all the rest. The future isn't reserved for the chosen. It's built by the committed. If something inside you feels awake right now, trust that. Awareness is the first signal of alignment. The next move doesn't need to be perfect, just intentional. Wait till the final moment, yes, this one. Your path doesn't require permission. Only participation. And now, you understand everything. Wait, before you move, something just shifted. You felt it, didn't you? That quiet click inside, like pieces aligning without a sound. A moment ago, we uncovered the pattern beneath success, the idea that commitment, not perfection, bends the future. But there's a deeper layer still hidden. And this section was never meant for everyone. It was meant for the ones who stayed. Here's the recall, just a spark to reopen the mystery. If success isn't talent, if it isn't luck, if it isn't even confidence, then what is it really? Now listen closely. The next revelation is subtle, yet it explains almost everything. Successful people learn how to sit with unfinished identities. They don't rush to define themselves too early. They allow evolution. They accept being in progress for longer than feels comfortable. While most people cling to labels, student, employee, expert, beginner, visionaries stay fluid. They become adaptable before they become impressive. Short breath. This is where tension turns into hope. Because it means you don't need to know exactly who you are yet. You just need to keep moving in the direction of curiosity. Another micro-reveal, almost whispered. They separate ego from execution. They don't need to look right, they need to build right. Feedback doesn't threaten them. It informs them. Being wrong isn't personal, it's practical. This is why they move faster. Not because they're smarter, but because they're lighter. You'll understand this part in a few seconds. Think about the way the future is shaped. Not in giant moments, but in quiet decisions made repeatedly. To show up again. To refine again. To try once more when no one is watching. And here's the turning point most never admit. They design their environment to support their direction. They don't rely on motivation. They rely on structure. Systems that make the right action easier and the wrong action inconvenient. Habits that carry them forward on days when inspiration is silent. This may explain what you've been sensing all along. You don't need more willpower. You need better alignment. Now let's bring the lens back, briefly, to Elon Musk, not as a symbol of fame, but as a case study of this principle. The public sees bold visions. What they don't see is the relentless rebuilding of systems, teams, routines, and feedback loops, over and over, until momentum becomes inevitable. And here comes the wave of revelation. The future doesn't reward intensity. It rewards consistency with direction. If this message resonates, you know where to find the next one. Stay connected to what's unfolding. Now, a softer note, almost a mystery again. There is a reason you're drawn to stories of the future. Of innovation. Of people who refuse to accept limits. It's not admiration. It's recognition. But there's one truth still missing. One final unlock that explains why some people sustain success while others fade after the breakthrough. Before the next part, something must be revealed. You were meant to hear this section most of all. Not loudly. Not suddenly. But right now, when your mind is open and the noise has faded. A moment ago, we paused at the edge of a missing truth. The question still hanging was simple, yet heavy. Why do some people sustain success while others fade right after the breakthrough? Here is where everything tightens, then opens. The next reveal may surprise you. Sustained success is not driven by ambition. It's driven by alignment with a problem larger than the self. That's the difference. Many people chase outcomes, money, recognition, freedom. And when they touch it, the fuel runs out. But those who last tie their energy to questions that don't have quick endings. Problems that keep evolving. Missions that feel unfinished no matter how far they go. Pause. This moment may explain what you've been sensing. They are not motivated by arrival. They are compelled by pursuit. Another micro-unlock, quietly powerful. They learn to manage energy, not time. Time is fixed. Energy is renewable, if protected. They design their days around deep focus, not constant reaction. Around long stretches of thinking, building, and refining. This is why their impact compounds while others burn out chasing urgency. Tension rises here, because this part challenges a familiar belief. Busy does not mean effective. Noise does not mean progress. And now, hope enters. Because this means clarity is a skill. And skills can be built. The next insight moves us forward. People who endure success learn how to zoom out while others zoom in. When chaos hits, they step back. When pressure rises, they widen perspective. They ask, what matters in 5 years, instead of what feels loud today. This is not detachment. It's strategic calm. You'll understand this at the end. Think about the future for a second, not as science fiction, but as an unfolding sequence of choices made by people willing to think beyond the present moment. Those people aren't reacting to trends. They're preparing for realities that don't exist yet. This is where Elon Musk fits into the pattern, not as a hero, but as an illustration. The common thread isn't risk-taking. It's time horizon. A willingness to think in decades while operating daily. That dual vision is rare. And it's trainable. Now comes a softer revelation, almost personal. They accept that discomfort doesn't mean misalignment. Sometimes it means growth is happening quietly. Not every hard moment is a signal to stop. Some are signals to stabilize, adjust, and continue. Let that settle. Because here is the final wave of mystery before the next part. There is still one deeper truth beneath all of this, something even successful people struggle to articulate. A principle that determines not just how far they go, but who they become along the way. Before the next part, something must be revealed. Stay right here, before your thoughts wander, something important is coming into focus. Not dramatic. Not loud, but unmistakable. In the last part, we stood at the edge of a deeper truth, the one beneath ambition, beneath systems, beneath even long-term vision. The question was left open on purpose: what ultimately shapes who successful people become, not just what they build? Here is where the answer begins to surface. The next reveal is quiet, but it changes everything. The most successful people develop a relationship with uncertainty that others never practice. They don't fight it. They don't rush to eliminate it. They learn how to coexist with it. This is where tension appears. Most people need certainty to move. They want guarantees, proof, reassurance. But visionaries move while the picture is incomplete. They accept ambiguity as the cost of creating something new. And here comes the shift, from tension to hope. Because uncertainty isn't a threat. It's a signal that you're at the edge of growth. Another micro-unlock, subtle but powerful. They stop asking, "Will this work?" and start asking, "What would make this work?" That single change transforms obstacles into design problems. And design problems invite creativity, not fear. This moment may explain what you've been sensing. When you feel pulled toward something bigger but can't explain why, it's often because logic hasn't caught up with intuition yet. And the people who shape the future learn to trust that gap, carefully, intelligently, but consistently. Now listen closely. Here's a revelation many never articulate, even after success arrives. They build an internal compass stronger than external approval. Praise becomes information, not identity. Criticism becomes data, not direction. Their sense of self is anchored internally, which allows them to move without constantly checking the room. This is rare. And it's cultivated. You'll understand this at the end. Think about how easily momentum collapses when validation disappears. That's why so many burn out after early wins. But those who endure learn to draw meaning from progress itself, not applause. Now zoom out again. Look at the pattern one more time, not through admiration, but awareness. People like Elon Musk aren't sustained by hype. They're sustained by an inner narrative that frames challenges as temporary and purpose as ongoing. This isn't about personality. It's about perspective. And here comes another micro-reveal, almost like a whisper. They understand that identity is flexible, but values are not. They allow their roles to change, their methods to evolve, their strategies to update. But their core principles stay intact. That stability is what allows them to adapt without losing direction. Now the wave turns back toward mystery. Because even with all of this, uncertainty, mastery, long horizons, internal compass, there is still one final layer. A truth so fundamental that once you see it, you can't unsee it. Before the next part, something must be revealed. You didn't arrive here by accident. Before you move on, let this settle in. This is the section where the pattern finally speaks. Just a moment ago, the mystery was clear. Even with vision, resilience, and an inner compass, what is the final layer that separates temporary success from lasting impact? Hold that question. Everything connects now. Here is the reveal most successful people never say out loud. They stop chasing identity and start serving a trajectory. This is subtle. And it changes everything. Most people ask, who am I becoming? The ones who endure ask, where is this heading? That shift releases pressure. It frees energy. Because when you focus on trajectory, you don't panic over every misstep. You measure direction, not perfection. Tension rises here. Because letting go of a fixed identity feels risky. It feels like losing control. But what actually happens is expansion. You gain room to grow beyond yesterday's version of yourself. Now hope enters, quiet, steady. This means you don't have to defend who you were. You're allowed to evolve. Another micro-reveal, arriving gently. They learn to think in layers of time, simultaneously. They act in the present. They design for the long term. And they learn from the past without living there. This layered awareness creates a strange calm. Urgency without panic. Patience without delay. You'll understand this at the end. Here's a futuristic truth that often goes unnoticed. The world doesn't reward those who predict the future. It rewards those who prepare for multiple futures at once. That's why adaptability becomes the ultimate advantage. Not speed alone. Not intelligence alone. But the ability to reconfigure without losing momentum. This moment may explain what you've been sensing. When the path feels unclear, it's often because you're standing at a fork meant for growth, not confusion. The discomfort isn't a signal to stop. It's a signal to widen perspective. Now, one more layer unfolds. People who sustain impact build feedback loops with reality. They test ideas early. They listen without attachment. They correct without ego. This is how vision stays grounded and grounded work becomes visionary. Look again, not at fame, but at framework. Figures like Elon Musk operate inside this loop. Imagine boldly, test quickly, refine relentlessly. The outside world sees bold statements. The inside process is constant calibration. Revelation settles here. The future isn't built by certainty. It's built by responsiveness. And now, mystery returns. Because even trajectory, adaptability, and layered thinking rest on something deeper, something almost invisible. A final truth that explains why some people remain aligned even when everything around them changes. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. You were meant to hear this now, right before everything clicks into place. Not earlier. Not later. This exact moment. Just before this, the mystery narrowed to its final edge. If trajectory matters more than identity, and responsiveness builds the future, what is the invisible force that keeps everything aligned when pressure rises? Here is the answer, revealed slowly, because it reshapes how you see success. The people who endure build a private relationship with truth. Not public truth. Not popular truth. Personal, internal truth. This is where tension quietly appears. Most people outsource truth to feedback, trends, and noise. They wait to be told what's working, who they are, what matters. But those who sustain impact develop an inner signal, one that detects when something is off long before results show it. Hope follows right behind this realization. Because that signal can be trained. Here's the next micro-reveal. They conduct honest internal audits, constantly. Not self-criticism. Self-clarity. They ask uncomfortable questions early. Is this still aligned? Am I optimizing the right thing? Has the mission drifted? This habit prevents slow collapse. It keeps momentum clean. You'll understand this at the end. Another insight, almost futuristic in nature. In a world of accelerating change, internal coherence becomes a competitive advantage. When systems evolve fast, clarity inside becomes the stabilizer. That's why some people remain calm in chaos. They're not guessing who they are while adapting. They know their center. This moment may explain what you've been sensing. That quiet discomfort you sometimes feel isn't weakness. It's misalignment trying to get your attention. And the earlier you listen, the less force correction requires. Now comes a turning point. Those who last don't confuse motion with meaning. They pause strategically. They step back to recheck assumptions. They refine direction without announcing it. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. On the inside, everything is recalibrating. This is where revelation settles. Success isn't sustained by intensity. It's sustained by integrity, with one's own standards. That's why comparisons lose power. That's why timelines differ. That's why outcomes compound quietly. Look once more, not at celebrity, but at alignment. People like Elon Musk aren't propelled by constant certainty. They're guided by internal consistency. A commitment to first principles that filters decisions when the path forks. This isn't about imitation. It's about awareness. And now, mystery returns for the final time. Because even truth, alignment, and internal coherence point towards something deeper still. A final realization that explains why some people don't just succeed, they reshape what success means. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. Pause. Before the thought passes, stay with this feeling. You're closer than you think. Just a moment ago, we uncovered the idea of internal truth, the private compass that keeps alignment intact when the world accelerates. The mystery still lingers. What is the final realization that turns alignment into legacy? Here it is. Not abrupt, but undeniable. The people who truly last stop optimizing for success, and start optimizing for contribution. This is the quiet turning point. Success asks, what can I gain? Contribution asks, what can move forward because I was here? Tension rises here, because this shift feels counterintuitive. When you stop chasing outcomes, outcomes improve. When focus moves outward, momentum moves inward. Hope follows. Because contribution creates meaning that doesn't expire. Another micro-reveal, unfolding gently. They measure progress by impact, not applause. Applause fades. Impact compounds. When decisions are guided by usefulness instead of visibility, resilience forms naturally. There's less anxiety about timing. Less obsession with recognition. More clarity about direction. You'll understand this at the end. Here's a futuristic insight that reframes everything. In an automated world, value comes from what only humans can offer: judgment, imagination, responsibility. Those who understand this early don't compete with machines. They collaborate with possibility. They choose problems that matter, not just metrics that grow. This moment may explain what you've been sensing. That pull towards something meaningful isn't distraction. It's calibration. It's your awareness nudging you toward work that aligns effort with purpose. Another reveal, simple, powerful. They accept that legacy is built slowly, invisibly, through choices that won't trend. Daily decisions. Uncelebrated discipline. Consistency when no one is watching. This is where revelation settles. People who endure don't ask, "Will this make me look successful?" They ask, "Will this still matter if my name disappears?" Now zoom out, one last time. Look not at personality, but at pattern. Figures like Elon Musk are often discussed in terms of ambition or controversy. But beneath the noise is a recurring theme: alignment with problems that outlive the moment. Energy flows where usefulness feels real. This isn't about scale. It's about intention. And now, mystery returns, softer than before. Because contribution itself rests on something deeper still. A final insight that explains how people remain grounded even as influence expands. Why some carry power lightly while others are consumed by it. Hold on, before the momentum carries you forward, let this sink in. This is the point where everything softens, and then sharpens. Just before this, we uncovered the idea of contribution, the shift from personal success to lasting impact. But one question remained unresolved, quietly waiting. How do some people carry influence without being changed by it? Here is the answer. Simple. Profound. They detach their self-worth from outcomes. This is the unlock. Tension appears here because most people fuse identity with results. When things go well, they rise. When things falter, they collapse. But those who endure separate who they are from what happens. They are steady. Because they are not their metrics. Hope flows in right after. This means failure doesn't erase them. And success doesn't inflate them. Another micro-reveal, precise and powerful. They see outcomes as messages, not judgments. Results become information. Signals for adjustment. Not verdicts on value. This mindset creates emotional stability in volatile environments. And stability allows clearer thinking when pressure peaks. You'll understand this at the end. Here's a future-facing insight most overlook. As systems grow larger, humility becomes a form of intelligence. Knowing what you don't control keeps perception accurate. It prevents blind spots. It keeps learning alive. That's why the most effective leaders remain students of reality, even after reaching the top. This moment may explain what you've been sensing. That quiet desire to improve without proving. That pull toward growth without performance. Another reveal unfolds, gentle, grounding. They practice self-distance. They step outside their own thoughts. They observe emotions instead of obeying them. This creates space between impulse and decision. And in that space, better choices are born. This is where revelation settles. Power doesn't corrupt automatically. Attachment does. When ego loosens its grip, clarity expands. When identity stays flexible, influence becomes sustainable. Now look again, not at status, but at stability. Figures like Elon Musk are often discussed through extremes. But beneath the surface is a recurring discipline, returning to fundamentals when noise grows loud. Recentering on principles when attention surges. This isn't detachment from reality. It's grounding within it. And now, mystery returns, one last time. Because even humility, contribution, and inner stability point toward something deeper. A final realization about why certain people feel called to shape the future at all. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. You didn't come this far just to stop here. Before the silence returns, let this unfold. This is the part where the question finally turns inward. Just moments ago, we touched the edge of humility and inner stability, the idea that true influence doesn't cling to outcomes. But the mystery still lingered. Why do some people feel an almost magnetic pull to shape the future at all? Here is the reveal. It's not ambition. It's not ego. It's responsibility awakened. This is where tension quietly rises. Most people wait for permission to matter. They wait for roles, titles, approval. But those who shape the future feel responsible before they are chosen. They see a gap, and something inside them says, someone has to care. Hope follows immediately. Because responsibility isn't assigned. It's assumed. Another micro-reveal, subtle yet grounding. They don't ask, why me? They ask, why not me? This isn't arrogance. It's ownership. A willingness to step forward when something meaningful feels unattended. That mindset transforms spectators into participants. You'll understand this at the end. Here's a forward-looking insight that reframes destiny. The future isn't waiting for permission either. It's responding to those who engage with it early, through thought, effort, and imagination. That's why certain people seem ahead of their time. They're not predicting tomorrow. They're taking responsibility for shaping it. This moment may explain what you've been sensing. That quiet urge to contribute more than you consume. That restlessness when potential goes unused. Another reveal arrives, calm, clarifying. They redefine leadership internally. Not control. Not authority. Stewardship. They see themselves as temporary caretakers of ideas, teams, missions. This perspective reduces fear of loss and increases clarity of action. When something is bigger than you, decisions become cleaner. Revelation settles here. Influence grows when responsibility is carried lightly, but consistently. Now zoom out once more. Look at the pattern beneath the personalities. Figures like Elon Musk are often discussed as disruptors. But beneath disruption is devotion to solving problems that feel unavoidable. That sense of responsibility fuels endurance long after excitement fades. This isn't about pressure. It's about purpose. And now, mystery returns, softer, deeper. Because even responsibility doesn't explain everything. There is still one final layer, one truth that ties awareness, contribution, humility, and vision into a single thread. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. Stay with this moment. Before it passes, something essential is surfacing. Not dramatic. Not loud. But quietly undeniable. Just before this, we touched responsibility, the inner decision to care before being chosen. And the mystery tightened even more. What binds awareness, humility, contribution, and responsibility into one living force? Here is the answer, revealed gently. The people who truly endure develop a deep trust in process over control. This is the hidden foundation. Tension rises here, because control feels safe. Control feels powerful. But those who shape the future learn something counterintuitive. Control limits growth, while process expands it. They don't try to force outcomes. They commit to trajectories. Hope enters right here. Because when you trust process, you're never lost. Even when results are unclear, direction remains intact. Every step becomes meaningful, not just the visible wins. Another micro-reveal, subtle but striking. They fall in love with refinement. Not with being right. With getting better. Iteration becomes satisfying. Feedback becomes fuel. Improvement becomes identity, not success itself. This is why momentum doesn't collapse when milestones are reached. There's always another layer to refine. You'll understand this at the end. Here's a future-facing insight that reframes mastery. In complex systems, progress belongs to those who adjust fastest, not those who cling hardest. This is why adaptability keeps appearing in every layer we've uncovered. It's not a skill. It's a mindset reinforced daily through process. This moment may explain what you've been sensing. That urge to keep learning even when things are good enough. That discomfort with stagnation, even during comfort. Another reveal flows in, calm, grounding. They build patience without passivity. They act decisively, yet accept timelines they can't rush. They work intensely, yet detach from immediate validation. This balance creates quiet confidence, confidence rooted in continuity, not urgency. Revelation settles here. The future isn't rushed into existence. It's grown through consistency. Now widen the lens one more time. Look not at achievements, but at rhythm. People like Elon Musk operate within long arcs of process, years of testing, failing, refining, and recommitting. The outside world sees breakthroughs. The inside world is repetition with purpose. This isn't obsession. It's devotion to process. And now, mystery returns again. Because even trust in process points toward something deeper still. One final realization that explains why certain people never truly stop. Even after influence, impact, and responsibility are secured. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed.